Your computer's performance. So there are system tools that are provided with Windows 7 to give you the ability to improve your computer's performance. Have you ever wondered how the PC you own or want to buy, how it stacks up against others? Well, actually there's also a rating that Windows gives itself. It's called the Windows Experience Index. Let's have a look. So we're going to go to our control panel. So on the orb, I'm going to click on Control Panel. And out of all of these sections, there's one called System and Security. So let's have a look at that. So the Action Center we looked at in one of the earlier classes, and if you don't remember, what it does is it's your way of your computer notifying you of any urgent issues you must resolve. And you can see just in the bottom right, I have that little flag that tells me that I have 2 issues that I need to solve, but the flag isn't red, therefore it's just something I can do in my own time. The firewall is your protection for incoming threats against your computer. For example, if you access the internet or if you even have emails coming into the Windows firewall, allows you to control that. System is actually what we're going to have a look at, so let's come back to that. Windows Update, the operating system, Windows 7 on your computer, Microsoft does make regular updates to it. It could be if there is a security patch they want to add to it or an extra bit of functionality. And what you can do is you can switch this on and off so Windows will automatically update itself. Power options is because this is a laptop, so I can change the behavior of whether I want it to automatically go to sleep, to save the battery if I don't use the laptop, and how long I want it to wait before it does that. Backup and restore we'll talk about in some later lessons, but backing up my important files on this computer. If I ever plug in other devices or I want to encrypt some of the data on here to make it more secure, I can use this functionality. And administrative tools, well, we're actually going to use some of these tools when we look at the system option up at the top. And the NVIDIA control panel, that's mainly because of my graphics card. It gives me an extra bit of functionality. So depending on the hardware, you may have a few extra bits in this, but the ones we've just looked at are the core ones. So let's go on system. So this is the information about my computer that Windows 7 provides me. So it tells me I'm using Windows 7 Enterprise. You might be using Windows 7 Professional or a different flavor of Windows 7. Then we have this Windows Experience Index. This rating is of the computer. So a computer with a score of 2 is typically sufficient for basic tasks like word processing or web browsing. Running the Aero desktop experience, which we looked at before, is at least a 3. Graphics intensive software normally requires a 4 or higher. And this number really depends on how you use your computer. You don't necessarily want to have the 7.9 top of a rating if you're not going to use that power. It tells me about my processor and my installed memory, and also my system type. So let's actually explore this Windows Experience Index. Then what it's done now is by clicking on it, it breaks it down into the key components. So this is where I can now target and address that score if I'd like to. So my processor, you can see, is very high, 6.2, so the maximum is 7.9. My memory is very good. And it's only my desktop performance, my graphics, that has given me this lower rating of 3.4. My gaming graphics is 5.3, and my disk data transfer rate, so my hard disk, is 5.9. So all of it is very, very good. It's just actually the Aero that's not so good. And in fact, it's actually the monitors that I'm using has actually influenced that. If I want to improve any of these, I can click on a couple of these helps, and also I can go online and I can put online how do I improve, and you just put these words in your search. What we're going to do now is going to look at 2 ways of actually improving your computer performance, a little bit of maintenance. The first one is called disk cleanup, and just to the left you can see there is open disk cleanup right here. Whenever you delete your files and whenever you surf on the web, and if ever there's a problem with your computer, it creates some other files. So when I'm deleting files, it goes into the recycle bin. If my computer crashes, it creates some error reports, and all of these just clog up the system. So when I click on this, actually you can see that the disk cleanup is just down here. It's working, so I'm just going to click on that so you can see it. What now my computer is doing is it's scanning the computer to look for these error files, look at my recycle bin, and it's going to work out and present to me how much of my hard drive I could reclaim if I get rid of all of these temporary files. Now, depending on how good or bad your system is, will depend on how long this search takes. But it is quite okay, but it will take just a couple of minutes and we'll just leave it sitting there. And when it finishes, what it will do is it will pop up this window here. Let me just only show this. So it's selected some files it recommends that I delete, and then it tells me up here how much disk space I can reclaim. And 1.12 gig is quite a lot of disk space, so really I should be running this disk cleanup. It hasn't selected everything, and it's up to you if you want to actually select the items it hasn't chosen. In order to then delete it, all I now need to do is click OK, and what it will do is it will make sure that I'm sure I want to delete these files, because once it's done, I can't recover them. And then it's just going to work through systematically those files and remove them. And so that's 1.1 gig of space that has been added now to my hard drive. Another thing that we can do is we can defragment. So the first one is the disk cleanup. The second one is the defragment your drive. If I click on the arrow and type defrag, you can see it gives me my disk defragmenter. And what actually happens is the disk defragmentation is required because every time you move files around internally within your computer, even though visually it looks like they move, the reality is they haven't actually moved in the system. What has happened is your computer has just created links to where the new location is. So if you think of it as leaving a trail of pieces of string around your computer, you get, the more you move your files and rearrange, then those pieces of string just get more and more and more. So what this defragmenter does is it reorganizes all of those files. So from your perspective, as you're using the system, you won't notice any difference. But underneath the covers, all those links of those bits of string, so that Windows knows where to actually go to get the real file, will be all cleaned up. Disk defragmenter is actually now being configured so that it actually runs regularly on my computer. And this is a very good practice to do. So I can configure the schedule and set it so that it runs weekly, and on this particular day and at this time. And notice it's at 1 a.m. in the morning, so it is when I'm not using my computer, because it does take slow down the computer as it does do this defragmentation. If you want to see what it does, if I want to just run it ad hoc as opposed to in a schedule, what I can just do is I click on the Analyze Disk, and you can just see now it is working on my C drive, and it is analyzing whether I do need to defragment it or not. Let's just pause the video now and we'll come back and see when it's finished. So now the defragmentation analysis has actually taken place. So that took about 10 minutes. You can see that it's 1% fragmented. So the next step would be to defragment the disk. You only need to defragment the disk really when it gets to about 10%. But I'll show you what actually happens when you click on it. When you click on it, what happens is it will now just go through all of those files and just reorganize them. And again, to re-emphasize, it's not a case of from your user perspective those files will move or anything like that. This is more from the computer's perspective. All of those files are made up of lots of ones and zeros, and it's just reorganizing those ones and zeros to make the computer run more efficiently. There we go. So what we've just talked about is the computer performance index. Just showing you where it breaks down how your computer performs, so you can compare one computer against another. Don't get worried if your computer is not the top 7.9. That means that computer will be very, very expensive, and you only really need your computer to be able to perform for the jobs and tasks that you do. Can you improve it? Yes, you can. And some of the things that we actually looked at just now was to help keep your system clean, and that was the disk cleanup, which is something that it's a good idea to run once a month. And also the disk defragmenter, which you can see from my computer, it just set up Windows 7 to do it every week. Preventative maintenance, always better.